Halloween is directed by David Gordon Green. It stars Jamie Lee Curtis, Will Patton, Judy Greer, and Andy Matichak. I might have mispronounced that, and if I did, I deeply apologize. Anyway, this movie is a direct sequel to the first one. Now, one thing to keep in mind, the Halloween franchise has about 11 or 12 movies in total. It's a really big franchise. But what this new movie is doing is that it's disregarding every other sequel that is right after the first one. So technically speaking, now we only have two Halloween movies. We have the first one from 1978 and the new one, which came out on Friday in 2018. So this movie takes place 40 years after the first movie, the events as well. So Laurie Strode, who is once again played by Jamie Lee Curtis, she now has a daughter, a granddaughter, and she has massive PTSD after the events of the first one. So she's been spending the majority of her life after those events, preparing to have a final confrontation against Mike Myers, as well as, having family struggles because she can't handle with what happened with her, and it affects with her daughter, and it affects the relationship with pretty much anyone that surrounds her life. Mike Myers, he escaped from a bus. So basically the mental health facility, there's a bus full of patients. Mike Myers finds a way to escape, and it's Halloween, and he begins to unleash hell. Now we have a new movie. Now, I was intrigued to see this movie for sure because, number one, I am a huge fan of the original 1978 film. It's a classic horror film for a reason. Even 40 years later, it still holds up very well. It's not just a great horror film, it's a great movie in general. You can watch it over and over again because it has a lot of entertainment factor. The characters are very well written. And even though the story is, simple, it's so effective, and it revolutionized the horror genre, if I'm being honest, in terms of slasher films. And Mike Myers is known as like one of the best killers of all time in terms of movies, because that guy is very scary. And this movie proves that even to this day. So the new Halloween movie, how is it? Now, I have not seen any other sequel after the first one, so this benefits me because I can watch this movie right after watching the original, since now it's a direct sequel. I'm happy to report that the new Halloween film is an effective and well-made horror film that really serves up as being a good sequel to a classic horror film. What works about this movie? I'll start off right off the bat by saying that the best element of this movie is by far Jamie Lee Curtis. I thought that she was on fire in this film. You really believe that she is someone who has PTSD, who is terrified, but while she's terrified, she's also some kind of a badass because she's preparing and as much as possible. So she's like trained in terms of shooting guns and knifing people and all that kind of stuff, and she has these traps, so she's very much prepared. But even then, simultaneously, she's afraid because Mike Myers may or may not be human. I mean, who knows? That's still a debate going on. I have no idea what to what to even make of that. But this movie, like I said earlier, it does prove that Mike Myers is someone that you can't mess around with, because there are some kills, man. They really went clever with some of the kills. And what's really effective about Mike Myers when he kills people in this movie in particular, you don't necessarily see the death scenes of certain characters. I mean, you can tell that the character is dead for sure, but there are some scenes where he kills people and you don't necessarily see the action of him killing someone. You see the aftermath, and I think that adds, a more of an effect in that way, because it adds to the fact that in one moment this person was alive, and the next moment you see this person and like her brains are bashed in. So rather than having the director, making it how do you call, like a shock value, kind of factor, I rather prefer him, just seeing what the aftermath rather than seeing, the action of someone being killed graphically. Although there are some scenes where you do see people getting killed right then and there, but I thought the way they handled that aspect was actually very well done. And the acting, for the most part, is actually really good. I enjoyed everyone in the film. The daughter, Judy Greer, I'm not a big fan of her, to be honest, but I did like her in this movie. I love the relationship she had with the mother. I don't want to get too much into it because they do go, obviously when you watch the movie, you'll get to see what exactly the relationship is like, but it's not exactly your typical mother and daughter relationship. And there is a reason for that. Again, I'd rather not get into it because I do recommend this movie and I want you guys to see it. And I think it'd just be better if you just experience the movie yourself and see how everything unravels. The granddaughter, she's good too. I like the actress that portrayed her, but I'm going to get more to that a little bit later when I talk about my cons with the movie. But I thought as an actress, she did a good job. Will Patton, he plays a cop who knows who Michael Myers is, and despite the fact that he's a police officer, he is terrified of the situation. He's like, damn, I mean, I'm a police officer. I have these skills to apprehend certain people, but this is a guy I don't even know if I can apprehend myself because this guy, this guy is crazy. He's psycho. I mean, who would want to apprehend Mike Myers himself? I mean, even in the first one, cops, like Mike Myers was just killing everyone, and even cops are like, oh shit, like, am I actually safe if Mike Myers is around? Because not even the cops, not that the cops aren't doing their jobs, but it's like, shit, Mike Myers is killing everyone that he sees and anything that he sees. Like, this guy is psychotic. But one thing I did like too was the score. Now, John Carpenter, who directed the original film, and he's directed many classic horror films, and the guy's a legend. So he came back to do the score of this movie, and the score, terrific. I don't know if this will be nominated for Best Original Score. It would honestly be great, but I got to say the score really added to the atmosphere of the movie, and basically an homage to the original score, and it was really creative, especially during this really suspenseful scenes. The score absolutely adds to the effect of you being on the edge of your seat. There's also some humor in this movie. What surprised me was that Danny McBride, he co-wrote the movie, and there is some humor here that works for the most part. There are sometimes not so much. Like, there's one scene in particular involving two cops, and it's not that the scene wasn't funny, but when that scene was going on, it felt like I was watching a completely different movie. But I will say, like, 80% it works and 20% doesn't. So 80 obviously is a much higher number than 20. So the humor does work, and I thought it was incorporated pretty well with the film. As far as flaws go, the granddaughter. Now, I like the actress that plays her, but it does focus a lot on her character, and there's this whole story arc with her that involves her boyfriend and this high school dance and this guy that may potentially like her. And the thing is, it's not that it's a terrible subplot or anything, but I'm here thinking, Jamie Lee Curtis's storyline and what's going on with her daughter and what she's dealing with is way more investing than what I'm watching right now. And it felt like even some of the characters that the granddaughter, meets or is friends with, it's like you can tell they're only there just to have Mike Myers kill them. Like, that's it, because you don't care about them, and they're your typical teenagers that just want to get high, have sex, and don't really add anything at all to the movie. And there is one reveal that it's a huge spoiler. I'm not going to say it here, but it didn't work for me. It just came out so out of left field, and not only that, but like in 2 minutes, it just kind of concludes, and then you just never see it about it again. I guess for some people it'll work. For me, it did not at all. It was like, okay, I really didn't need to see that. And, like I said, some of the humor didn't work, but overall, I thought this was a good movie. It's a well-made, effective horror sequel, and I don't know if any sequel is ever going to top the original. And I know you have to take that with a grain of salt because I have not seen literally any other Halloween sequel after that. And it's not that I didn't want to. I was going to originally binge watch every Halloween movie prior to this one. But you have to understand, as a college undergrad, there's only so many hours in a day, and life is very busy. But the point I'm trying to make is I don't know if there's ever going to be a sequel that tops the original one from John Carpenter, because that's a classic. But this probably will be the closest they ever get. This is a good movie. In terms of comparing to other horror films that came out this year, I think other horror films like A Quiet Place and Hereditary are better horror films. That being said, this is still a good movie. I would recommend seeing it, especially if you're a Michael Myers fan. Oh my God, can I speak today? And if you're just a fan of the franchise in general. So I'm gonna give Halloween 2018 version a B+. It's a good movie. I'd recommend seeing it in theaters. If you haven't seen it yet, it's probably a good thing, and I'll tell you why. Because usually horror films tend to attract the worst movie-going audiences. Like, you'll have people on their phones or shouting every 2 seconds. And I didn't experience that, thank God, probably because the time I went. I was smart with the time I went. But I imagine now that since a lot of people have seen it opening weekend, you might have a better chance of watching this movie in a theater where it's not so loud and it'll be more peaceful. So, yeah, I recommend seeing it. It's a good movie. I'll give it a B+. Good Halloween sequel, and just a good horror film in general. So, good movie, and props to David Gordon Green, the director, because this is the same guy who directed Pineapple Express, Stronger from last year, and now this. I mean, the guy can direct a lot of genres, and he does them pretty well. So, props to David Gordon Green. I'm interested to see what he does next. All right, guys, it's my review of Halloween. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. And just a couple of things. I am part of a podcast called Jay and Lou. Well, they do a podcast. I'm not particularly part of that podcast per se, but I do handle the social media aspect, and I do write reviews for them. So make sure to follow Jay and Lou on Facebook and Instagram. And I also have an Instagram page, Dago the Movie Man. And you can follow me on Twitter. And I have a Facebook page, Dago Koya's movie page. It's literally what it's called. So if you want to follow me on that, please do. I'll greatly appreciate it. I try to keep that updated as much as I can and all that kind of good stuff. So, okay, that's it. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoy this review. And I'm not exactly sure what I'm reviewing next. I'll have to see, because honestly, this weekend looks so dry. I honestly have no ambition to watch Johnny English 3 or Hunter Killer. So I'll get to see what comes out in my theater that looks better than those two movies. So whatever my next review is, I guess will be a surprise. So, all right. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys later, and have a good one. Goodbye.